We're joined from Paris by Dr. Majid Bouden, Professor of International Law. Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening.
Now, what we've seen that the French government has collapsed after this historic no confidence vote. What should we be expecting at those upcoming days?
Well, the next step is the appointment of a new prime minister. The Constitution of France provides for these kind of issues. The French president is still in charge until 2027, so he had the possibility and the obligation to appoint a new prime minister, and this will be done. However,
are we speaking here about the assigning of a new prime minister, or are we speaking about elections? Are we speaking about a caretaker? What are we speaking about here?
I mean, there is no new elections in the next future, at least for the next 7 months, because
Yes.
the French Constitution is providing that when the president dissolves the parliament, at least the House of Representatives, then we call it the National Assembly. Then he cannot dissolve it again, unless only after 12 months, after a year. So now it was dissolved in July, so now we have to wait until next July. Meanwhile, he cannot dissolve the parliament again. So then what he has to do is to appoint a new prime minister with the National Assembly as it is, with the equilibrium in between the three major forces: the left-wing force with the extreme left, with the central body, with the central parties supporting the president, and the extreme right wing.
No, Doctor, yes, please.
But there is no majority, and they did not agree to have a majority. So we will have a minority government. And the minority government must seek arrangement with other parties to not be censored and to not be overthrown again.
Now,
so
yes. Now, from your point of view, what does the joint action of France's far right and left-wing lawmakers say about the current state of the political polarization in France?
Well, we have to remember that how we come to this situation. We come to this situation after the elections, and the votes were very clear. That means that the right wing was elected by its own electorate. But for the left wing and for the central parties, they have been elected by an arrangement, by a kind of arrangement that they will support each other to face the extreme right parties. So instead of following the same arrangement to form a new government, they were each one wanted to form a government by its own, and they could not succeed. So now they are facing the same problem, which means that nobody will have the majority. And we are stuck in this situation, but we have to find a solution. So the new prime minister must find a solution. Why now the extreme left has joined the extreme right and vice versa? And this is against the mandate that they have received, at least for the extreme left, from the mandate they have received from in the elections. And it will be a major sanction in the next election in several months. So, but for the time being, we have to cross the bridge. We have to cross the bridge with a new prime minister. The president will not resign. There is no room to discuss a resignation, because he has the Constitution obliges him to not resign, because he must supervise and guarantee the continuation of the institution of the state. So there is a crisis. It's a ministerial crisis. Europe is used to this kind of crisis. We can see what happens in Germany, in Spain, in Belgium, in Italy, in Holland, in the Netherlands. So it is very common.
You mean that the situation in France could really reflect on the whole Europe at large?
Yes, of course, because now Europe is preparing itself for negotiations with the new administration, the new American administration with President Trump coming into power again. So they must prepare these talks. They must prepare these negotiations. It will be tough negotiations. They have also the war in Ukraine, the war in the Middle East, all what's happening in Africa. Uh, uh, so the negotiations with China, and they cannot continue in this situation. So they must find a solution very quickly, and the the French president must appoint a new prime minister. Mm-hmm. Probably he will appoint somebody, politician from the central parties, but he will give him the opportunity to discuss with the left, the moderate left parties, mm-hmm. to try to form a government which can survive any censorship.
Now, before we go into choices and chances, let me here ask, Michel Barnier is the shortest serving prime minister in the modern French history. Now, what does this tell about the challenges or rather in France, that led to a deeply divided parliament?
Yes, but this is a fact. Now we have to deal with the facts as they are. There is a difference between what's going on, what is the constitution rules in Germany and Spain, for instance, where a majority can overthrow a government only if they can form a new government in substitution. In France, we don't have this rule. So in France, when you have a majority which can overthrow a government, they can overthrow it. But the second after, when they have to form a government, they are split out and they cannot form a government. So we are in a mess. And therefore, the president...
But indeed, what I wanted to ask you is what led to such a mess? What led to such division? And what does this reflect or tell about the challenges that is really facing France?
Well, what led to this is political opportunism. The right wing, they are opposing on every point the left, the extreme left, and the extreme right has taken the opportunity of a motion of censorship against the government, and they voted it just by pure opportunism, political opportunism. And exactly the same thing for the extreme left. They have accepted to play the game with the extreme right, and these two parties are playing a dangerous game only to create political chaos in the parliament. And they wanted to force the president to resign, but the president will not resign, and they will not succeed in this. They will paralyze the political life for a while. But now we'll have a new prime minister, and the new prime minister, if he is overthrown again, it will be another prime minister. And after, when they will fade the elections, the electorate will see that these two extreme parties, extreme left and extreme right, are playing with the institutions just to take power. So this is not acceptable for a very old democracy like France. Therefore, the future is very clear. Now we'll have a new prime minister. The new prime minister will try to form a government, but uh, they cannot censor it again. They cannot vote against it. They cannot overthrow it.
Dr. Bouden, here, how important is it at this very critical time for a display of unity between France's far right national rally and the left wing New Popular Front, and what can we expect from these factions going forward?
There is no any unity at all between them. It's just a matter of opportunism. They took an occasion. They can unify to overthrow a government. They cannot unify to form a government because each one wants to get to power very quickly, and this is their aim. For the left-wing leader Mélenchon, he just wants to get into power, and he's declaring this very openly, without caring about what he's going to do, or he can stabilize the country. He just wants to pay everybody, and he wanted to change the rules. He wanted to change the way, even the constitution. He's calling for a new constitution. Now the extreme right, they are facing a problem with its leader, Marine Le Pen. He is facing a trial of misbehaving in European financial payments from the EU, and she could be banned from any political mandate for a certain period of time, and she could be not allowed to run for the next presidential elections. So this is why she wanted to create this chaos and to put pressure on the judiciary. And I believe she will not succeed in putting this pressure on the judiciary, because the judiciary is independent by nature. And if she believed that by creating this chaos, they will call her to find a solution, and maybe to avoid this a possible judicial sanction. And this is why they cannot unite anyhow. They have shown, and it's seen that they cannot unite. They can do negative things. They cannot do constructive things. And this is why one day or another, France must come to the solution to avoid this kind of situation by amending its constitution, like the Germans and like the Spanish, to provide that if a majority can overthrow a government, it can be done only under one condition, which is to form a government in substitution.
Now, from your point of view, France is now plunging into a political turmoil. From your point of view, what can President Macron do to alleviate the political crisis, particularly at this very, very critical time the whole world is passing by, and just ahead of a new US presidency?
Well, it's to appoint very quickly a new prime minister who can find consensus to not be overthrown for at least the next few months, at least for next 6 months or 7 months. So if he can succeed to do this for the next 6 months, and I think it's possible, because nobody can dare to overthrow a second government. And therefore he must do this very quickly, and I believe he can do it. He had all the possibilities to do it, and it will be done, I believe.
Right. You spoke about how will that reflect on Europe at large. Now, what impact exactly does the resignation of Barnier have on the broader European political landscape, particularly concerning the stability of the EU bloc?
Well, regarding the EU bloc, it doesn't affect the stability, because Belgium, Germany, Spain, Italy, the Netherlands, all these countries are used to drag along to form a government. So Europe is used to that, and they are
But
solid
France
enough
is a very strong member of the
yes,
European Union.
yes, of course. But Europe, as such, they are used to have these kind of dragging along to form a government. So it doesn't have any impact, and the impact will be circumvented when you have a new prime minister, because then you have a new government. We have seen the euro was not affected today, and so the matter will go on. I believe in few days the matter will be stabilized.
Remains to be seen, definitely remains to be seen. That was from Paris, Dr. Majid Bouden, Professor of International Law. We thank you so much for your insightful analysis.